Hey there, for those of you, so we start the live. For those of you that do not know me, I mean let's the beginning here. Let's go slowly. I tried to make some adjustment here. I tried to use two computers so I could see any comment easily. This is the first live that I do in about the last live I did was like 4 years ago, so it was a pretty long time. And I know that now it seems to be pretty easy to make these lives. But anyway, you have to adapt, you have to learn. And I tried to use the computer, but I forgot the password of the other computer. So now I'm trying to use my cell phone. But anyway, I can do the live, but I'm not pretty sure that you'll be able to see your question. If you want to participate live, you can let me know because I can just send you a link, and you can let me send you a link if you want to participate live. You just let me know. I can send the link. If you have like any comment, maybe you want to talk me. Maybe you want to talk a little bit about your background. If you see in your corner, you have the chat. You can write, and if you want to participate, like talking, you just have let me know. So uh, so that's my first live as I said, in about 4 years. I'm a little bit nervous because it's a kind of experiment I'm doing on this channel. I used to post videos like the video that I like to post, the kind of video that I like to post. They are more like webinars you pre-record, then later you can post. This kind of video is easy to do because you can make the edition of the video, you can change. So I'm doing a kind of experiment. In the end of this live, I'm going to show you a set of possible future lives that you can help me to decide which topic is of your interest. You can let me know as well a topic about biomathematics that you are curious about, and if I have the competence to talk about that, I will do. If I don't, I try to find someone, maybe my network. I did my PhD in biomathematics and also my Master of Science, so I know some people. I will make this live available in the end. The reason why I'm going to make this available is because I want to let other people see that wasn't able to participate from the live. If you can't understand me, I'm using English instead of Portuguese. Maybe in the future I'm going to bring some. I'm going to bring some videos in Portuguese. I'm thinking about that. You can let me know. I mean, I would like also to use this our first live as well to give you some ideas about what's coming next, about how I plan to go on with this channel. I mean, I just invited some people. I'm inviting other people as well. Hopefully, we are going to have more lives on this channel, but that's just an experiment. So your opinion or your suggestion, anything that you can give me as a feedback, feedback and so on, it can be quite useful. I'm not sure if my English you can understand it well. I mean, I have an accent, I know that. Sometimes I speak fast, but you can, as said, you can have the chat in your right corner. You have as well the possibility, if you want, you have the possibility of entering the chat. So essentially, I'm going to do a discussion about system thinking, why that's so important. Then I'm going to leave that available, and later maybe if you watch this live later after it was published, you can always still give me feedback and let me know how I can improve. let me know maybe the kind of topic. As I said, I'm going to give you some set of topic in the end of the live that you can suggest. So let me see here. Let me share the screen view. Maybe you have any problem with sound, you cannot hear very well. If you have any problem, I ask you kindly to let me know. Let me see. I don't know if you were able to see it. Let me just see. So I will be unable to see, at least for a while, your comments and your suggestions, but you can leave that on the comment area. And I'm trying to check from time to time. I'm doing it alone, so it's a little bit difficult to double check everything, but it will be available. So let's go to work. Let me just say. So the idea of the live today is not to be very long. It's just to be very short because that's my first live. I expect to learn to evolve along the way. So if your feedback, if your opinion, we can go on along the way. So the biomathematics is essentially when you apply any kind of mathematical model to biology and medicine. It can be, for instance, biostatistics, in which you apply statistics. Bioinformatics, that's more generic term that you can apply, for example, any kind of computational model. However, you can say that I'm going to show you a book that I suggest you to read if you are interested. But essentially, after Isaac Newton that he created the laws of Newton, we had a kind of new way of thinking in science. Essentially, people start to think that science could be reduced. So it's called reducionism. Essentially, reducionism is when you think that you can understand the system just by breaking down the system. So you break the system. So suppose that you have a very complex system here. I don't know. Let's suppose that you have here something here that you don't know what's inside. It could be, for example, a tissue of your body. For example, you have cancer, and you want to understand how the tissue works, how the cancer works. Can it be COVID? You can understand how the COVID interacts with your body. So that's your system that you cannot understand. One of the biggest contributions that was given by Isaac Newton and all the previous research in physics and so on, is that you could always break down the system in a small part, and you could study each part individually, easily, and make a generalization. For instance, when you have physics, you have, for example, let's suppose I'm talking about my own experience. So that's you may see that's a first-hand experience. So here I have a block. Let's say a metal, a piece of metal. So you want to understand how all this metal is going to respond, for example, to heat. One thing that people do in general in any kind of engineering that works with the metals and the metallurgy and so on, kind of engineering, they are going to sample a piece of this metal, small piece. They are going to take this piece to the lab. The lab, they are going to make an experiment to understand how the system works, the force, the heat, the response. Then they are going to make a generalization. So as you see, they start from small, then they go big. They generalize. So for you to understand, for example, the laws of Newton, you don't have to go to space. You can understand the here on Earth. Then you make generalization. Most of the time, the generalization, they were correct. If minor mistake that was correct by the general theory of relativity. Most of the prediction done by physics, they were quite precise. So physics was able to achieve a level of precision that it's amazing how they were able to achieve. The same idea of the reducionism can be found in computer science. One of the idea of computer science, or one of the things that's hidden behind computer science, is that you can solve anything in computer science by breaking down the code. I'm I'm not a computer scientist by formation. I'm production engineering, but I work a lot with programming of computer. So what we essentially do when in computer science, we essentially you have a code of computer that you want to build, very complex code, can be anything, can be Windows, can be anything. Essentially, we build small functions. It's called modes or methods, object-oriented programming. They're all the same. They break down the whole system in small pieces. Everyone solves small pieces they put together. That's how it works. For example, Linux, which is a free software. That's how I built my latest platform. That was the result of my last postdoc. Essentially, I use a set of libraries that were designed by people that I don't know. I have never seen those people in front of me. So essentially, those people designed the system. They designed this kind of library, as you may call it. This library, they were made available for free. Then, without knowing who they were, what they were solving, what they had in mind, was able to use their knowledge to build. That's how software is built. Software is built by parts. So you have the idea, you have to divide and conquer. Ou seja, that is, you have to break down the complex system in small pieces. Then if you do the small pieces, you just go on. That's called reducionism. However, things in biology become a little bit more complex. I mean, things in biology is not that simple. Let me see if I can find it here. Let me see if I can hope for you here. Let me see if I can open here a small pad that I can. Just give me a minute that I'm going to. I'm going to open here something that you can see. I can show you the example. That is a minute. I just need a minute. So essentially, when you have let me see if I have to share with you this kind of, I'm still learning how to use this, so I have to share with you. So, I mean, that's it. I believe you are seeing what I can see. So essentially, when you have a system, let's say any kind of biological system, let's say you have a tissue here, a piece of biological tissue of your body, for example, you did a sample of your body. So essentially, it's made of small cells, very small cells. If you go even further inside those small cells, they are made of genes. You can go of DNAs, and you can go even deeper. They are made of small strands, you may call it, that are called genes. So what you cannot do in biology is this kind of simplistic idea. If you take just one small, let's say if you take just one small, I have some time to stop to make sure that everything is going according to the plan. So that's the first time I'm doing this live. So I saw if it's like make it a little bit hard to follow. Anyway, I think it's fine. So come back here. So when you have all the cells, the cell, if you start just one cell, you cannot. I mean, you are going you can do it, but the precision that you are going to have when you go the generalization for one cell to tissue is not as it happens in physics. Essentially, how the cells they talk to each other, how they interact, that's pretty important. That's one of the reasons why the vaccine for COVID has all these kind of steps, all this kind of predefined steps, because they have to make sure that the vaccine is going not just to work in vitro, they're going to work as well in vivo. So in biology, you have the concept of in vivo and in vitro. In vivo is essentially when you go to human. When you go to human, you are going to in vivo. So why that's important? Why that's so important to have the difference between in vitro, that you make the experimentation in lab, and then when you go in vivo. The reason is quite simple, because the fact that a drug is able to work in a tissue, like in physics. Remember the example I gave? I gave the example like this. I gave you this example here of you have a piece of metal. That's from physics. So the person was able to sample a small piece of this block and make a generalization to the whole block. So that's how physics works. You can make generalization. However, when you come to biology, that's not so trivial. You can make this kind of generalization. Just a minute, I just have to fix it. So you can't make this kind of generalization because it's not going to. I have to fix something. So in physics, you can't make this kind of generalization. You can make this kind of generalization because the way each cell interact with each other is quite important. If you see this image, the image that I have used here, let me see if I can find for you here. Let me see if I can find for you the image here. This image here that I gave, let me open another one. So, let me see if I can make it bigger. Let me see if I can make it bigger. This image here that you can see, that's an image from that image is called we call that the complex network. It's an image from how the protein. I'm not pretty sure if this protein of this is genes, but essentially when you do this kind of graph, it's called graph theory. When you do graph, you create this kind of connection. Each dot that you can see here is an element. It can be a cell, it can be a gene, it can be a protein. I don't know. I don't remember quite sure. If you see here, they are all interact with each other. So that's where the reducionist thinking does not work. When you try to reduce all this complexity here that you can see the connection between the gene to small samples, you cannot find the result. That's why when you go to in vivo, you may have some side effect that people they are unable to predict, because the interaction between the cells, the interaction between the organs, the interaction between all the parts of your body, it has to be taken into account. But when you do some kind of in vitro, in kind of experimentation, you are outside the body. So the behavior that you have of a tissue in vitro, in lab, when you do in vitro, it means that you are doing, you took a piece of the tissue you're trying to study. That kind of lab experiment doesn't always work when you go to human. That's why it's called, you have animal experimentation with rats and so on, because you need to make sure that in the case of the vaccine of COVID, you need to make sure that the experiment that was done, most of them in vivo, it still has its validity in vivo. Just to remember that's alive, we are doing a live, so you can talk. If you have any question, if you have any comment, you have a suggestion, you can just leave it there on the chat, or if you want, you can talk to me. I can send you the link. You can come here, talk to me. That's the reason why I'm doing the live. I could just pre-record this video and make it available, but I decided to make the live because so you can interact if you want to interact with me. Just by chance, just to mention, I'm planning to make as well some course on Udemy. Udemy is an online platform for learning. Anyway, so that on this kind of complex network that I'm showing here, that's where the reductionist thinking of physics is fails. I'm not sure if I explained myself well, but when I show the slides, we have some slide. I have some slides here that I have some slide here that show you how some reference, because it's always nice that you that you read something. Let me just share with you again the screen of the slides. Okay, I hope that you are here. You are seeing everything. I hope that now you are seeing. So as I said, I'm alone. So I have sometimes shift from, because I'm trying to make sure that if you have any question, have any comment, you can let me know by the chat. You can let me know by any other mean that you know that's best. So let's go on. So essentially that's it. I hope that I was able to explain all the difference. I know that's not easy to understand at first. I had my difficulties. So the advice that I could give you if you want to understand what system thinking is, you have to read. I mean, I may give you the slide, but it's more, it would be pretty wise if you try to read about the topic. I believe that would be the best. Anyway, so that S that you have here, have this S here, that's the just a word, but that make a big difference when you go to make the modeling, when you go to make the mathematical model. So how the system thinking gets so famous in biology? So the story essentially goes like this. It's a simplification of the story, but essentially molecular biology with the gene project was able to sequence a considerable amount of information, but they found on the result that they were unable to explain all the complexity of life. If you compare the number of gene of rice and the number of gene of human has much less gene than rice, but you are more complex than rice. Even a rat that is not so complex in terms of as human, they have, I believe, more or less the same amount of genes. So the question is, if the number of gene is not the only answer to explain complexity, how we human are so complex? How can you explain the fact that the human can do so much? I mean, you see how the complexity of the human as a system is quite complex, but how can you explain that? So there is that interaction, the interaction between the gene, the interaction between the organs. Now we have even a system applied to ecology, like everything is connected in terms of environment. So that's how let's say that's how it can be applied. So it's the idea that everything somehow should be connected. How do you take that into account in mathematical model? Luckily, the models that you need nowadays to make this kind of to make the modeling, they are not so. I mean, they are not so far away. I mean, we have nowadays they call dynamic systems and all the kind of mathematical technique that can be used to take into account this kind of difference. We have also now very powerful computers that can use to make a numerical simulation, such as automata. You can simulate automata. You can make simulation by agents, like instead of trying to model everything like as one, as sometimes you have to do, you're trying to model how they interact one by one, make some simulation one by one. And since the computer now is pretty fast, they can make this kind of simulation. So I'm not sure if I was able to explain well what is system thinking. The topic is not, let's say, trivial. It's a quite important topic. So that's why I'm going to leave you some book that you can read, that you can make your own idea. I strongly advise that you read some books if you are interested in this topic. So the idea that behind all the mathematical complexity, if you go to some papers of system biology, papers about mathematical biology, you are going to find a considerable amount a considerable amount a considerable amount of models, a considerable amount of formula and so on. It can be very scary to people that is not familiar with this kind of this kind of strategy. So essentially that's it. I hope that I was able to somehow to explain, at least for you to have the first contact with the system thinking. So one book that I'd like to advise, just give me a minute, have some water because, speaking. So one book that I'd like to advise to you, I'd like to suggest, I'm planning as well to come back maybe in other videos talking about those books, is that the book of the turning point. It's a quite old book, as you can see here. It's not recent. That's one of the interesting that this guy is still alive and will show another book by him. But anyway, here he talks about, for example, how physics was able, the physics of Isaac Newton and so on, was able to create the reducionism way of thinking. So he proposed that you must think as a system thinking. That was the first time that I read somewhere about system biology. So the first time I saw the word system biology, I mean, I read the book before I knew system biology. But after I did some course system biology, I know about system biology, I was able to read the book again, and I found that it was quite interesting that they had the topic system biology in the book. So that was a pretty big curiosity that Capra was able to mention that on this book. So he mentioned this book, the idea of system thinking. Then he comes back with another book, this one, that I'm going to this one. So in this book, he mentioned in the beginning of the book that this book was inspired by one chapter. He mentioned precisely the chapter about the system biology, because if you see here, he talks about the concept of web of life, that we are all connected. So that's the idea that came to physics as well. The modern physics has this idea as well of system thinking. And biology had to. I mean, in some area, you may say that people can still go on by making simplification, by making reductionism, but in biology, it's basically impossible. It's basically impossible because how the cell interact with each other, how one gene control the other, how one protein interact with the other, how one enzyme interact with the other, how the interaction happen, that has a huge impact. So it's not enough for you to know how to model a single gene. It's not enough for you to know how to model a single protein. One example of how biological systems can be complex, that there is an area called molecular dynamics. Molecular dynamics essentially is when you apply the laws of Newton, Isaac Newton, and also some theory of molecular dynamics is applying as well quantum mechanics in order to make some prediction. But the point of molecular biology is that when you try to make the prediction of the shape of a protein, because as you know, your body is all protein, so you have protein everywhere. One example, the venom of the scorpion, the poison of the scorpion, is just a protein. The protein that attack your nervous system. So everything in life is protein. Protein is life. So if you understand how the protein unfold, how the protein moves, because the protein is about 2% of active area. There is, if you think like let's say that's a protein. Let's suppose a protein is something like this, more or less. If you see the image of a protein, it's that's the image. Let me see here. Since I don't know, maybe it's better. So that's the image of a protein. So let's see if so the protein, essentially, there is a small piece of the protein that's called the active area. So this area is the only area responsible for interaction. So all the whole protein is just a kind of support, a scaffold. So this small piece of the protein is responsible for making interaction with the whole environment. So the protein can be activated or deactivated. That's the reason why your body need to have a temperature of about 37, I believe it's 36 and 38 degree. because if you stay with your temperature very high, yeah, the temperature of your body goes very high, you essentially lose this kind of shape of the protein. So what they try to do with molecular dynamics is try to predict what would happen with the protein. For example, you have a kind of drug, medication that you want to test. Yeah, you want to test the medication in silico, I mean in computer. You want to make a computer simulation to understand how a drug is going to interact with your protein. How? Because, for example, in the case of COVID, if you know the precise protein that COVID is attacking, most of the drug is going to do that. They are going to see which protein is being attacked by the virus and so on. If you know precisely which protein it is and how you can deactivate or activate something, you can create a drug that will have impact on the disease. That's going to have impact to avoid the kind of medical condition. So that's it. So what happened in molecular dynamics? When they try to make the prediction of the shape when they try to make the prediction, let me just sometimes I have to stop. That I have to make sure that everything is okay because I'm doing this alone. Anyway, so when you're trying to make the prediction of the shape of the protein, what happened? They were unable to do that because they had to assume, in order to simplify the computation, that this is surrounded by water. That's not surrounded by water. No, that's not true. In the real situation, your cell is surrounded by a complex biofluid that has a lot of property. So that's the point. They have to make the simplification. So when they do the molecular dynamic of the protein, then when they go to the real thinking, to the body itself, it does not work because they're doing simplification. They're not considering, for example, the interaction of the environment on the protein. So that's why you need to have this idea of system thinking, because it's not just about understanding. It's not just about understanding the system itself. You cannot just break down a complex system. That's another word that you most likely going to hear about: complex system. What's a complex system? Essentially, a complex system is a system of two or more elements that you cannot explain their behavior, just study each part. I'm going to give you one example in the upcoming slide about neuron. How the neurons in your brain works. It's all about complex system. It's all about systems thinking. It's all about interaction between each part of your each neuron is going to talk to each other. So this interact that happens between neurons is a kind of system. It's a system thinking at place in biology. So biology found this. So I don't have here the book, but there's a very good book that essentially the author of the book, he was able to explain complexity of the neuron just by his dynamic system. So that's what's called system thinking. So that's it. That I'm going to just summarize for you. I suggested two books from Capra, this one and this one. One is the starting point. The second one is the Web of Life. The same author, they have all the books as well. If you are interested, just go. I think this is a very good author. He's a physicist. He works with physics. Ironically, a considerable amount of people that works in system biology come from physics. Maybe because physics is all about building models, and biology starts to consider the building of those models. I can bring as well in webinars or lives if you want, if you think that could be a nice idea. I can bring as well in lives and so on, others discuss this kind of book. I mean, I don't know. I want to do something that is very nice for you all. So the best way that let me know what works for you, what's better for you. For me, I already read those books. So for me, I already know more or less what's inside those books. So I already said to you this kind of topic. One thing that let me see. Let me say. I think that's it. I said to you what I had to say. This book is relatively recent. It's like it's not so old compared to the other book that I cited. You can find some talk by Capra on Google or on YouTube. It's worth it. I think you can like you like it. The third book and last book that I'm going to suggest for you on this live here, for you to know more about system thinking, is about the book called The Music of Life. The nice thing about this book is that this book is precisely about system biology. So that's a kind of book that that you can read, and you can understand. For them, they have they have a very nice example in the book. I really like this example. Essentially, they show in the book that the concept of combination, because one of the tricky part about system biology and so on, system thinking, complex system, complex networks, is that the combination can grow exponentially. For example, if I give you let's say two elements, so you have now several interactions between them. They can interact, for example, like this, like this, like this. I'm not sure how many of them, but I think it is like two multiplied by one. I think it will be like 36, about six possibilities. I'm not sure. I think it's six possibilities. But anyway, this number here can grow exponentially, can grow pretty fast. That's one of the reasons the COVID is able to spread so fast, because the COVID is essential network. When you have, for example, one person here, 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 and so on. When this person interact with each other, this interact with this one, this interact with this one. So this person here interact with this one. See that if this person is infected, let's say that I'm able to infect this person here with COVID. All of these three persons will be infected as well. And most likely, this person will have contact with other more people to infect. So that's why the reason to go exponentially. So it gives as well one example in the book that I like a lot. It's an example of rice. I'm not going to tell you all the story here that you can find in the book. So I suggest you to read the book. But essentially, he gives an example of a person that decided to use the concept of combination to beat the emperor of China. Essentially, he was a simple. I'm just going to summarize the story. I suggest you that you read the book. So when you read the book, you're going to see the story as well. But essentially, he said to the emperor of China, he was a simple person, that the emperor of China would ask his servant to put like one rice in each corner, then two in each one, then three. I don't remember pretty well the logic, but anyway, if you do the calculation here, that's exponential. The number of rice that you have to put, if you keep increase like that, is quite high. So that's exponential problem. So in a matter of time, as the book tells the story, the emperor wasn't able to give rice enough for the person to put on the chest. It was a big chest. Anyway, I believe that the book explains better the story. So that's one of the books that I'm going to suggest you. I can bring more discussion about this book in other videos. So in summary, I just to summarize, I already said about system thinking. I already explained you about system thinking. I already gave you examples. I'm going to give more example on the upcoming slides, but I already gave you example how the system thinking work. Just remember that you can make questions on the chat. You can, if you wanna ask him something, just let me know. Anyway. So the system is the process by which you try to learn about the system, focus on the interaction. So that's the key word here, interaction. So the interaction is not it's just one word, but that makes a huge difference, because you can't explain, for example, a complex system. That's one important thing to keep in mind. If you want to study system biology or anything, you should keep in mind there is a difference between complex and complicated. A plane is complicated, but a plane is not complex. A set of two neurons it's not complicated because it's just two neurons, but it's complex. So complex has to do with the fact that you can't understand what's going on. I mean, you can see the effect because how the neuron work, how they fire, how they talk to each other. You know that because you did several experiments in human, you did in squirrels, and so on. You know how the neuron work, but how they create the consciousness, how they create the mind, how they create creativity, how the brain works to make us like us, to make our mind. We don't know. So biology has a huge complexity because of this, because how this in biology we are able to understand how each part works together, how each part works separately. That was the reason of molecular biology. Molecular biology was able to break down basically nowadays we can understand essentially almost the whole DNA. I mean, you still have a lot to do yet in molecular biology, but essentially molecular biology achieved the level that nowadays you can make a sequence, for example, in the case of COVID. How people know that COVID has a new strain? How do you know biology that COVID has a new kind of COVID going around? That's gene sequencing. That's the sequence of gene that they understand. They can do that pretty fast. And how do you do the vaccine to COVID? Now they have several vaccines to COVID. One of the vaccines for COVID, I don't remember I think it's from USA or UK, I don't remember. They are based on DNA. They're based in the sequence of the gene. So they have information how the cells interact with the virus. So that's one of the tricky part of molecular biology, of biology as a whole, because molecular biology was able to understand how each gene express, how each gene, for example, have here. That's how in mathematics you do the gene. We have here the controller of the gene, the one that you need the signal. Then you have here the expression of the gene that in general will be RNA. Then you have protein, which is defined. Everything in the end goes to the protein. So when you have this signal, you have the RNA messenger, then you have the protein. So how the gene interact with each other, that's one of the key imperative idea. Let me see if I can open here for you. Let me just explain one thing here. But first I have to, let's see, I have to change here. At just a minute, I have to change. Just a minute. So I hope you are seeing now okay. I hope now you are seeing the one page, one note. So essentially, what I want to show you is something like that had to do right now with my postdoc. I just finished a postdoc that has to do with target therapy. So you may ask yourself, what's target therapy? What target therapy has to do with target therapy has to do with system biology. That has everything to do with system biology. What they found, that I don't know your background, I don't know, but in mathematics, when you want to represent something, in general, we do a kind of cycle. You do a circle to mean like anything. Like in our case, each circle is in our case here, each circle is a gene. So each circle in our case is a gene. So what you know if you come back here, let's see. If you see here, that's a kind of a gene network. So have a huge amount of interaction. So imagine that you decide to study, and you take a small part of this to study. Let's suppose that you want to study a small part. So how you study a small part of this? Remember that you cannot make the reducionism, but I'm not going to explain here. But they were able to make some kind of reduction. They found in system biology that even though you cannot break down system biology, you cannot break down biological system into very small, simple pieces, you can find like they called motif network. Motif network is essentially, let me put here for you that you can see for yourself. It's called motif network. I have some reference I can send you. So motif network is essentially a small piece of gene expression of a small piece of network. I'm not sure how to write motif, and let's see if it's correct. Let me see. It's a long time that not write this word here, but anyway, you can double check the internet later or can put in the reference. But the motif network is essentially a small piece. It's essentially a piece of is essentially a piece of a complex network that makes sense. One example of motif, let me give you one example of motif. I don't want to make this video too long. I can come back later with more information, but that's a motif network. You have 3 genes. This gene is going to control this one. This is going to control this one. And then this one is going to give a kind of suppression here. That's called a motif, because I don't remember the name of this motif, but I think the name of this motif is I believe it's feed forward. I think the name was feed forward. I don't remember because I studied on my Math of Science, but I think it's feed forward loop. Oh, anyway, this gene is going to make a positive influence on this. Let's say this gene here is going to make a positive influence on this gene here, which is going to make a positive influence here, which is going to come back and make a inhibition on this gene here. That's called a motif. That means that there are 3 genes that they work together. So even though we cannot break down biological system as to break down physical system, we still can find some patterns on that. That's called motif. So suppose that we come back to our example, have several, sometimes it's hard to make explanation if I do not know your background. So I have some time to explain something because this video is going to be available. And hopefully people can make suggestions then how can improve the video later. Anyway, that's a very simple network. So suppose that this gene interact with this one interact with this one interact with this one with this one. I'm just doing something random here. And this one interact with this one. So that just something random. This kind of, when you see here, this kind of bar, this is called inhibition. This means that one make the other stop. They have the opposite direction. This one is called positive. It means that one make the other increase. So have increase and decrease. So have positive feedback. That is positive regulation, negative regulation. I don't know your background, but let's suppose that I ask you to. So I'm trying to make this kind of here, all of this gene network. So let's suppose that you found that this gene network is something that can be used in a kind of pharmacological disease, and you found that you want to stop this network. You want to stop all this gene to be expressed. So let's put the one to stop. So let me say, I asked you to stop the video just for a little bit. I mean, that's alive, but when you see the video, I would like to ask you to stop the video. And then I want you to think about how would you stop this network? I mean, if you want to stop all this network here, see that this gene interact this one, this one. So this gene here, these 2 of them here, they interact with no one. They are alone. But this one, no, sorry, they interact with this. This interact with this one, this interact with this one. So how could you stop this network? So what this one here of the middle, I'm going to give you the answer. That's called, this one here, it's called hub. It means that this gene here has a huge connection. So somehow, if you are able to delete this gene here, you stop all the network. So that's one of the applications of system biology. You find what is the hub, and then you stop the hub. That's called target therapy. That's one of the topic of my current postdoc that I just finished. So let me just go. Okay, so let's see. Let's go on with the slides so you can finish. Anyway, but always keep in mind that you are seeing a live experiment live. I'm not sure if that will be. I mean, yeah, there is that I'm going to make some value that you can let me know ways to improve. So your opinion when that is available will be quite important. So you just let me know how I can possibly make better version of slide. So how is this different from the approach that I already have? So I hope that by now you can answer this question. I mean, I hope that when you see it for the first time, this kind of thinking, it can be hard for you to make sense. But essentially, the difference that system thinking trying to take into account how each part interacts. So for system biology or system biomedicine or system pharmacology or even system engineering, because you have now the idea of system engineering, you have the idea of the life cycle assessment, which essentially is the area of engineering that tries to understand how the product create impact in the environment. So the idea of system thinking is that compared to the traditional approach, which is the reductionist approach, is that you cannot understand the part alone. You need to understand how they interact with each other. So the interaction can be even more important than just the part itself. That's one of the points that molecular biology was unable to respond. So from philosophical point of view, you need to update your dictionary and put this word here, emergent property. So emergent property is the key idea behind system biology, behind the complex systems, behind the complex network, and behind system biomedicine and system pharmacology. All this area that have systems in the name, in general, they are all about property. They're all about how the emergent property can create new part. So some example of system thinking can be system biology, system engineering, learning from feedback. I start to learn recently some new technique for me to interact with people. I read some book. I even wrote a small article some years ago. At the time, I thought I was crazy, but now it makes sense. I wrote a paper on how to apply system biology to your life. That was a small paper, nothing not complicated. But now I see that people they already did that. I mean, when you learn from someone that gives you a feedback, and you take into account all the information from the environment, for your interaction with the person, your interaction with the environment. That's a system thinking, system perspective. You're not just looking at how you and the person talk to each other, or how you talk to him or to her. You are taking into account how the interaction between two of you. That's a system thinking. Learn about your personality can be a system thinking as well. That's just about that. You can say that these two examples I gave here is about the psychology. System biomedicine, system pharmacology, and so on. I participate from several events during my PhD, and you have a considerable amount of wave trying to use the system way of thinking. So there is a reason for that. The reason is simple. The reason that we still can't understand what's going on in the biological system. One example, there's a Netflix series that I suggest to you that they try to describe some case that medicine is unable to solve. And most of them has a little bit to do with system, because if you don't understand how each part of your body work together to make the whole, you are never going to understand how it, when you have some kind of problems, because your body has what's called redundancy. So part of your body work like the same way. For example, when you go to a network, you're going to see that some genes, they're controlled more than once. That's a kind of protection, because if you want to fail, the order is going to work. So I may bring some example for you in future webinars, and maybe in other talks, so I can give you some more example. So as I said previously, I believe one quite nice example of how system thinking can be very tricky and beneficial is your brain. I mean, how your brain works. It's amazing. Doesn't matter how, I mean, it's amazing to see that your brain is just a set of neurons. Those neurons, they are able to fire electrical charge. They're able to fire some chemical, some neurotransmitters. So those neurotransmitters, they are able to make the gene, the neurons talk to each other. So imagine that if you take a single neuron, essentially the neuron is not thinking. You can't do too much with a single neuron. But if you take together all those neurons, and to take together all those neurons, and just give you one time here. I had a problem here. Okay, if you take together all those neurons and you put them in a network, you have your brain, which can do amazing things. You can. I can give as well. I can bring as well example. That this slide today is more for us to know each other better. So I'm going to give you suggestions, but in artificial intelligence, when trying to make artificial intelligence, you have to understand, for example, how the brain make association. I have some example in my other channel, but the way the brain works, it's quite amazing. There is a kind of called artificial neural network. The artificial neural network is a kind of modeling. It's a very simple modeling how the brain works. So essentially, each neuron on artificial neural network is a very simple mathematical model. So this very simple mathematical model is able to make a huge amount of work. And so that when people create the first artificial neural network, they thought that they have essentially solved all the problem, because nowadays, when you work with artificial neural network to make, for example, image classification, when you go to Google, when you go to some kind of your cell phone, your smartphone, you have artificial intelligence behind. We don't know precisely how to explain how that works. We just know how to build it. That's the case of the human brain. That's the case of the human in general. We know more or less how the human work. You can go there, take a single cell, you can study the cell, we can make a genetic sequence of the cell, and now they have the project about the whole human, you have the project about the virtual liver, the virtual pancreas. All those ideas, they are all about how to understand each part of your body. But when trying to put all the things together in a mathematical model, like in quantum mechanics and the classical mechanics, something breaks down. Because one of the reasons that we don't understand yet how the system precisely they work together. That's one of the contributions that maybe system biology and all this area can do, to help us to understand how complex it can be created from just interaction. So essentially, when you have system thinking, you have classical mathematical biology, you have system biology. I'm not quite sure I'm not quite sure which came first. It was system biology, mathematical biology, but you may say that they are essentially the same, because nowadays you have the several names, such as you can see bioinformatics as an example. My PhD in biomedical science it was recognized in Brazil as bioinformatics. However, what I did mostly was system biology. So we don't know yet how to classify this area. But anyway, when you get mathematical biology or biomathematics, as if you prefer to call it, and you put together system thinking, which is another basically the independent way of thinking, we have what's called system biology. So one takes system biology, and you get the genomics, the genome, you have a gene regulatory network. I'm not going to get too much in detail because that's not the reason of the live. I'm not here to give all the detail, but maybe I can bring more example in future videos. Anyway, I'm just going to give you some example here. I have already talked about that. If you go to the previous part of the video, I try to explain a little bit about how it works. But essentially, you have here, as I said before, you have the part that they call the general they call this part here of regulation. We call this part of promoter. Then you have the part, the gene that really produce something. Then you have several inputs from the genes. I'm not going to get into detail because it's kind of network. You have to explain, and there is all the details. I'm just here to show you, and I can bring all the videos to explain that there is that gene regulatory network can be just understood properly if you apply system biology, systems thinking, and so on. How you do that? I mean, that's a whole story, that's a new video, how you use differential equation, or maybe even artificial intelligence. Anyway, any kind of approach that has a system thinking behind. I'm also not get too much in detail because that's not the reason of the video, or otherwise the video will be pretty long. I don't want that to be that long. So that's another example. I'm not going to take. So anyway, I think I want to close because I think I have talked too much. That I didn't want to talk that much, but anyway, I would like to close this live by inviting you. I'm going to leave this live available, but I'd like to invite you to help me to decide which topic can be interesting for you. Maybe you like one thing that I can. There's some idea that I had for future lives. I mean, something that I want to talk in the future. Maybe I want to talk about parameter estimation, how you build models on life science, complex network, artificial intelligence, medicine, this one is in Portuguese. I think to publish some video in Portuguese as well. And this last one is a old project of mine that I was doing this project during my PhD, but I stopped because of my postdoc. Anyway, I want to come back to that. I mean, I don't know if you are a medical doctor, but anyway, that can be quite useful for you. So I'm going to stop here. So I'm going to leave this available on the internet. Let me just here. Anyway, so that's it. That was our very first live. I hope to learn in the future, to learn during the way. This will be available precisely that you can give me suggestion, that you can let me know how to improve. I'm going as well to make some experimentation, maybe Portuguese as well. I don't know precisely the audience of this channel was unable to assess with precision the speakers, which language does people on this channel speak. So that's it. I'm going to close. If you have any question, if you have any comment, let me see. Let's see if you have any comment. Or if you want to talk. No. So if you go to the corner of your chat, you're going to see kind of a box. I don't know if you were able to follow all the live. If you were able to follow all the. I try to keep a little bit short, but anyway, I think I talk a little bit more than I wanted to talk. So if you have any question and something, just let me know. I will wait a little bit.